Steelers Nation, we are a week and a half away from the 2024 NFL Draft, which means we have 2 more mocks to flesh out. This will be our second to last mock, and it will include the Steelers trading back into the first round. We do a mock every year that involves the Steelers working some sort of trade in the first round, whether it's trading up or back. In this one, we will have them trading back and getting an extra day 2 pick and some extra capital in return, because if you look at it, man, it's probably one of the more smarter decisions, one of the more smarter scenarios the Steelers could run at pick 20, because they only have a certain number of options that they really like, that they could choose from. And there is a possibility that a majority of them or all of them could all be gone by pick 20, which could influence their decision to trade back and gain an extra day 2 pick. And if the Steelers can get another top 100 pick off of the 4 ones they already have right now, that would be a very ideal situation.
That'd be a very Omar Khan type of move.
And that could actually help them in many ways, whether that's addressing another position or them trading up for another certain position or trading for a specific player. Wink, wink. But believe what you want to believe. But let's get into the mock, man. So the Steelers trade back from pick 20 all the way down to pick 25, where the Steelers trade back with the Green Bay Packers, because the Packers have some capital to trade since they have the 41st pick from the New York Jets off of the A-Rod trade. In fact, I think they have 4 or 5 picks within the top 100. So they have some capital to flesh out if they desire to trade up for a potential tackle, maybe an edge rusher, another offensive lineman, whatever the case may be. So the Steelers trade the 20th pick and the 119th pick, their 4th rounder, to the Green Bay Packers for their 25th overall pick. They trade down 5 spots. The 58th overall pick, which is another 2nd rounder, and the 126th pick. So they essentially swap 4th rounders and swap first, while the Steelers gain the 58th overall pick. So with the 25th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas, formerly Georgia, because he was a Georgia Bulldog his first 2 years in college. And the Steelers have drafted 3 Georgia Bulldogs in the last 2 previous draft classes, which means the Steelers have had their eye on Adonai for quite some time now. And that adds upon the fact that they sent their new wide receiver coach, Zach Asani, to the Texas Pro Day. And they also brought in Adonai for a top 30 visit. So the interest is very high when it comes to A.D. Mitchell in regards to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know a first rounder or a wide receiver in the first round probably isn't the most
ideal or the most go-to, especially when it comes to the Steelers, because our day 2 receiver selections are out of this world. We just know how to find a wide receiver later in the draft. We're a wide receiver factory, of course. But when it comes to what they're doing throughout the offseason leading up to the draft, with the rumors of them being very active for Brandon Ayuk and even T. Higgins, you know, they could very well push that aggressive pursuit for trading receiver and have that same mindset, that same aspect into selecting a wide receiver in the first round, especially when it comes to 2 certain AFC teams. I want to give a shout out to Steel Sentinel. We did a collaboration with him, and he mentioned this, and this is a very good take on his part. The Ravens and the Bills are just ahead of the Steelers. So when it comes to them trading back to the 25th pick, the Steelers are still ahead of both those teams. And, you know, those 2 are still going to want to be aggressive in the passing attack and wanting to get a secure and true wide receiver.
And they need a serious wide receiver, too, because all they have is Pickens and everyone else is undependable. I'm sorry. The wide receiver room as of now is terrible outside of Pickens. They need another receiver. As you see, Adonai, he has the potential to be a serious breakout player in the NFL. You know, he transferred from Georgia to Texas and had a breakout year. I think 11 touchdowns, over 800 yards for Texas with the quarterback situation they were having. He showcased the big playability. He showcased the continued improvement in his route running. He's just a great playmaker. And I think him, opposite of Pickens, they have that chemistry from their Georgia days. So you kind of have that in line on the field, in the locker room. And AD is going to be a first-rounder undoubtedly.
Yeah, and I've heard many people compare AD Mitchell to George Pickens. So imagine 2 George Pickens, talent-wise, at wide receiver 1 and 2.
I see Pickens. I also see a little T. Higgins in him.
You can't go wrong with either.
Just on his build and his big playability, his deep threat, his route running.
His speed, most important.
Yes, he ran a 4.34 40 at the combine, so he brings that speed that we seriously need on offense. I mean, this guy's going to be a breakout player in the NFL, and the Steelers have shown tremendous interest in A.D. Mitchell. So I am 100% certain that their eyes are on AD, and he's going to be a hot commodity wherever the Steelers are selecting.
Yeah.
It depends how the boards fall, which is, again, we're kind of covering every single option here. They could still go offensive lineman, which is probably the most likely scenario, but if all their options are gone at 20, that could influence them to trade back and still get their receiver ahead of the Bills and ahead of the Ravens and then the other wide receiver needy teams.
Yeah, maybe even the Chiefs, absolutely, at the 32nd overall pick, just to get ahead of the other AFC teams, just to make sure, hey, you guys are not going to be getting your targets. You guys are not going to be getting your wide receivers with your already established quarterbacks. So why not us get a secure number 2, secure that position, and us work on our passing game, work on us progressing and upgrading and just getting better, just being aggressive in the NFL.
And again, man, the wide receiver room just needs it. We need an impact player. And I know we have options day 2, and they are very, very good options, but I get this sense the Steelers are trying to be a little more aggressive in that room. Whether you want to believe the rumors or not, you just get the sense that Khan wants to be aggressive at the wide receiver position. He wants to add it. He wants to bulk it up. He wants to make it, like, really dangerous with Pickens already established.
And you can't hate that approach. You can't. It's the way to go in the NFL.
You need 2 big play wide receivers. You do.
You just got to go with the trend. You got to go with what's working in the NFL, what's winning your games and championships.
Yeah. So with AD Mitchell at 25 potentially, they trade back, get an extra day 2 pick. You get someone with speed, route running ability, deep threat, big playability. I do have concerns about his inconsistent yak ability and his inconsistency at getting 50-50 balls, but we already have the 50-50 guy in Pickens. You just give the ball to Mitchell, work on his deep threat, and then he can continue to establish himself as a route runner in year to year. Then you could have a complete wide receiver in Mitchell. I think that'd be a nice home run selection if they want to address wide receiver early, which, again, man, keep all your options on the table. We haven't drafted a receiver in the first round since Antonio Holmes in 2006, almost 20 years ago. But this could be a year to break it. This could be a year it could happen. So we'll see what happens. But AD Mitchell, we think, is a definite option in the first round for the Steelers, just based on their interest, where he came from, and the fact that he was in for a top 30 visit.
Yeah, so AD Mitchell is someone to definitely keep a close eye on when it comes to the Steelers selection.
Yes.
First round.
So we are still hell-bent on O-line, but you got to keep all your options on the table, man. Keep your mind open to anything. In the second round with the 51st overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia. We still get center at 51. Zach Frazier is arguably the most pure center in this entire draft class due to his experience starting, 38 career games, 37 career games at center for West Virginia as a center.
Yeah.
His last 3 years, he played every single game up until he got hurt in the regular season finale last year versus Baylor, where he showed his mental and competitive toughness, where he could have just sat there and took a 10-second runoff and cost his team some time with no timeouts left at the end of the game. He hobbled off the field and saved his team some time, and the team would eventually win the game. So that shows you his competitive and his mental toughness. While you see on the tape, man, he's a ferocious blocker. He can work in the run defense. He can get to the second level. He's an aggressive protector. He's an aggressive blocker, and that comes from his background as a 4-year consecutive heavyweight wrestling champion in high school. So all that brought in, man, you kind of see there's a lot to like about Zach Frazier, from his competitiveness, from his toughness, from his background, from his aggression, the way he is athletically as a center, as a blocker. I mean, and the Steelers have brought him in for a top 30 visit as well. They sent the assistant O-line coach to the Big 12 Pro Day to get a close look at Zach Frazier. And obviously, center is still one of the biggest needs on the team. It will be selected within the first 2 picks, undoubtedly, as it should. And Zach Frazier, man, is one of the top ones in the draft class. And I would think he's going to be a definite option day 2 if he is still there at 51. Center is falling. You got to believe that. Center is falling off of many teams' draft boards. There are still a lot of teams that need center, but they could be looking at other positions more importantly. And Frazier, maybe because of his injury and maybe because of the fact that center is falling off the boards, falling down the boards, he could still be there at 51. And I think that'd be great value. It'd be a home run selection for the Steelers at 51 to select your next franchise center.
Yeah, secure that position, finally fill the position with a guy like Zach Frazier. You mentioned center falling. We've stated several times that some teams just don't view center as a higher or a very valuable position as years previously.
Right.
So guys like Jackson Powers-Johnson, guys like Zach Frazier, even Cedric Van Pran could fall much farther than we're probably thinking or even imagining.
Yeah.
We see center as arguably the number one position to go to.
Yes.
The number one need right now on the team. But if they were to go wide receiver, go with that approach, round 1, and then you can fall back because center could be falling, get a guy like Zach Frazier. I mean, that's a win-win right there.
Yeah.
That's a win-win right there.
And honestly, I can see it because center has fell in the past in previous years.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with that option. We're going to go with that possibility. So Zach Frazier in the second round, man, I think it'll be another home run selection. It might even require a trade up, but for this one, we think he falls to 51. We'll see what happens on draft day, but Zach Frazier at 51 in the second round would be a home run selection, and then they fulfill center. You ain't got to worry about it. Center is filled. Now, with the 58th overall pick that they got via Green Bay because they traded back, 7 picks later at 58, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Max Melton, defensive back out of Rutgers. Yes, the brother of Bo Melton, Green Bay Packers wide receiver. The NFL bloodlines, you know how much the Steelers love the NFL bloodlines. I mean, it's actually worked for them in previous years. You look at TJ Watt, enough said. Nick Herbig, enough said. Connor Hayward, enough said. Am I forgetting any?
There's just so much. There's so many other names.
There's so many others, but
those are just the ones that come right off the top of our heads. But yeah,
they've all had some serious big plays for the Steelers. Not just in recent years, but more so last year. So they really love the bloodline aspect when they look at their prospects. But Max Melton, you can see he is a ball hawk. 8 picks in his last 3 years at Rutgers. Now, he played primarily outside cornerback, so he has that outside versatility.
But he also has that inside versatility as a slot nickel cornerback if need be. And that's where he would most importantly start and get his feet wet right there.
And that's mostly due to his size.
He's not the biggest guy. He's not the most bulky guy, but he's a very speedy guy. He's physical with his size. That in-and-out versatility, you put him in the slot, to which the Steelers need a slot cornerback. They have to fill that position.
And they already have Dante Jackson. They traded for Dante Jackson. He's going to be the outside starting guy opposite of JPJ. So Bo Melton can get his feet wet as an outside corner or as a slot corner. And then potentially in years later, he can work his way as an outside guy. Maybe get his feet wet there in sub packages this upcoming season, but he'd be primarily the slot option. And he brings the speed, he brings the physicality, the ball hawking ability, the blitz ability. He's one of those guys that can do it all. He has bloodline, Steelers adore that. He has all the makings to be a very good slot corner, one of the best coming out of this draft class, honestly. He's going to be selected early day 2, in my opinion. So with the pick we get from the Green Bay Packers, we select one of the Steelers' favorites, Max Melton, who they also brought in for a top 30 visit.
Yeah, they did.
So they look at Melton as a serious option day 2 because of everything he brings to the table, from bloodlines to what he can do on the field, to the speed he can bring, to the physicality he has. He's going to be a serious commodity come day 2. He's going to be a hot option on the Steelers draft boards. So Max Melton, we go in the second round, 58 overall, to solidify slot corner, and I think he can be a nice development with that in-and-out versatility. Maybe he can work himself as an outside guy down the road, but he have an immediate impact as a slot corner. I really like that option of him. So it's like we're filling 2 positions at once.
Yeah.
We fulfill the outside versatility, outside depth with bringing in someone that can start in the slot immediately.
And you got the bloodline duo right there, cornerback right there.
Think about it.
At least for the long-term plan.
Yeah, think about it. So, yeah, Max Melton is one of our favorites for sure, day 2, and still selecting with the 58th overall pick, thanks to the trade back with Green Bay. Now, with the 84th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Blake Fisher, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. This is one of our favorite day 2 tackles. I think this is the 3rd mock, correct me if I'm wrong, that we put him in this offseason because the Steelers also brought him in for a top 30 visit. And he started opposite of Joe Alt at Notre Dame the last 2 years at right tackle and was a very steady blocker, very good in the run blocking, steady in pass protection. He's still a development. He would not start day 1, as we know, because the Steelers like Dan more than than most us fans do. Mm-hmm. So he wouldn't start day 1. He would be a very good depth piece, a project, a developmental guy. And then he would eventually become the starting right tackle, opposite of Broderick Jones whenever Broderick is moved over to left tackle.
Yeah.
Dan Moore will not start too long. Whenever Blake Fisher is ready, whenever the Steelers feel like he is ready, he would be inserted as the right tackle. And they take tackle here in the 3rd round because they still need a tackle. And if they don't take one early, which is very possible, they could fall back on a guy like Fisher in the 3rd round in day 2. That's why we like Fisher a lot. He's one of our favorites. There's a couple of day 2 tackles they could take. There's a plethora of names. It's actually very stacked. But after some of the top names in the first round, obviously it is a little more dropped in value. Again, it depends how the boards fall. Tackle is one of those positions they could take anywhere.
Yeah, it's the fact that the Steelers have shown a ton of interest in Blake Fisher as well, too.
Yes, they have.
Got to get another big guy, another big body at there at tackle, have him work, have him develop, and just get him in there when Dan Moore is sticking up the joint. You move Broderick back to his comfort zone, because it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Happen.
You move Broderick back to his comfort zone, you put Blake Fisher when he's ready in there at right tackle, and then your tackle positions are good to go.
Absolutely.
That's the plan.
You got someone that's going to be under development, who already has the NFL frame. He has that experience at right tackle. And then there you go. At 84, man, I really like that option for the Steelers if they don't take tackle earlier. Now, with the 98th pick we got from Philadelphia, the 98th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Mason Smith, defensive lineman out of LSU, specifically a defensive tackle. This is definitely one of the more under-the-radar defensive linemen come day 2, maybe early day 3, because he injured himself. He got injured at the start of the 2022 season. He suffered a season-ending knee injury.
ACL injury.
And he really didn't recover well last year in 2023. He did not. The production was not there, but you can see on the film, he has the tangibles. He has the tools. He has the ability to be a serious starting offensive or defensive lineman in a 3-4 system. And for the Steelers, it's a perfect fit because he has great build, 6'5", 306, which draws comparisons up to Stephon Tuitt. And he would not start day 1, as we know. He would be very good depth, get his feet wet, and then eventually take over opposite of Keanu Benton whenever Cam Hayward hangs it up, which is most likely going to be after the 2024 season.
Yeah.
And defensive line, we keep stating this, man. Defensive line is one of those dark horse picks that they could take earlier or they could take a little later, maybe 98. Maybe they wait till the 4th round for a defensive lineman because they don't have anyone outside of Benton for the future.
They don't.
Ogunjobi and Hayward, I am very confident will be gone after 2024. And then who do we have? No one in that room outside of Benton. So I would think the Steelers are going to take a name whenever that is. Could be early day 2, late day 2, early day 3.
Well, they've done their due diligence on some of the top names, on some of the top other names on day 2, some of the later names. Like, they've done a lot of due diligence on defensive line throughout all 7 rounds of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
But we choose Mason Smith here. The guy's got good frame. He's got the fundamentals. He's still got to work on a couple things. You know, that's where...
And that's mostly because he's still a raw prospect, mostly because of that injury he suffered in 2022.
Yeah.
Which is why I say Pittsburgh is a perfect fit because his size, his frame, his tangibles is a good fit for us for what we need in a future defensive lineman. He would not start immediately. He'd be a rotational piece, which is perfect to get his feet wet. And Carl Dunbar, our defensive line coach, shout out to him. He's been a very good defensive line coach for us. He has only attended 1 pro day all year. What was that pro day?
LSU. And we all know LSU has a good amount of names, a trio of defensive linemen coming out. Mekhi Wingo, they got Jordan Jefferson, and Mason Smith.
And Mason Smith, I would say, has the highest ceiling. He's definitely got the build for it, that's for sure. Not only was Carl Dunbar there, so was Andy Weidel. And we all know how much Andy Weidel has preached about building the trenches. Yes.
That's what he did in Philly.
Yeah, Andy Weidel doesn't go to a lot of pro days, but he went to LSU's, and he has had an underrated role in so many additions we've had. I don't think fans understand how much of an input he has on a lot of the positions that we've improved and a lot of the names we brought in.
Yeah. Just look at last year's draft class, for example. He set out the draft board. Omar Khan just said, I want that guy.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to happen again. Absolutely
and what he did in Philly was build the trenches, especially their stacked defensive line for years. And I think he's going to do it again, and he attended LSU Pro Day, so he's keeping a close eye on the trio over there. And Mason Smith is going to be at the top of the draft boards for the Steelers because he has the highest ceiling. I think they brought him in for a top 30 visit as well. So the Steelers are going to look at him in great favor.
Yeah.
If they want to take defensive line late day 2, they could very well go with a guy like Mason Smith. If he's there in the 4th round, that's even better. That's greater value.
It is.
But if they want to secure him, they could take him at 98.
And that's pretty much at the tail end of the 3rd round anyway, so it's essentially an early 4th round selection if you think about it.
It's a comp pick that the Eagles got, and they traded that for Kenny. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
but the Steelers just add another body, just more competition. I know they signed Dean Lowry as well to the defensive line, but why not add more bodies?
They're going to need bodies.
Khan's all about competition and depth.
Yeah. No, because we brought in Dean Lowry. We resigned Montrevious Adams, but Loudermilk and Liao and all the other guys we've had in previous
They're
years,
not guarantees.
they just haven't cut it.
No, and they're not guarantees.
And we need a future at defensive line. So we go with a guy like Mason Smith.
Yeah, brings the depth capability, the competition capability, and he can work his way into the starting lineup down the road. At least that's the plan.
Yeah, I think that's the ideal situation here. And the trade back allows them to take a position like defensive line, since they already addressed the majority of them earlier.
Yeah,
I think that's
a big plus.
That's one of the greater things about trading back is they can get an extra pick and they can fulfill all the other positions, and then they can still take a position like defensive line early. So that's another reason we trade back in this mock. Now, with the 126th pick, since we traded 119 and swapped force for Green Bay, with the 126th pick in this mock, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Cedric Gray, linebacker out of North Carolina. This guy is an underrated linebacker in a linebacker class that will mostly be taking a lot in day 2. A lot of names will be taking day 2. A guy like Peyton Wilson, Edgar Cooper, Junior Colson,
Jeremiah Trotter, guys like that.
So many other names, right? Cedric Gray is someone that could definitely fall into day 3 because of the names ahead of him, and also because he does have a tackling issue. He has a missed tackle issue. That is one of his biggest concerns. Outside of that, he can be a great linebacker. He was a big stat guy in a lot of the stat categories for North Carolina. Forced fumbles, sacks, interceptions. He's a linebacker that honestly can do it all. He has all the tools to be a big playmaker. And I think linebacker depth is still a serious need.
Yeah, our starters are already fulfilled. We already know that. They signed Patrick Queen. Atlanta Roberts was a stud last year. Cole Holcomb, we don't know what his progress is on his recovery from injury, but, the plan is to have him in that rotation. Other than that, we don't have anybody else. Mark Robinson hasn't cut it.
No, and we don't really have anyone else in that room.
No.
And with the 4th rounder, the Steelers like a guy like Cedric Gray because they sent Aaron Curry to the North Carolina Pro Day. And they're going to need someone with some sideline-to-sideline range, someone that's a demon in the run defense, someone that has a good feel in zone coverage. That's what Cedric Gray brings to the table. He just needs to work on his wrapping. He needs to work on his tackling issue. And then you're going to have a very, very quality backup to start, someone that could eventually develop into a capable starter. A very solid starter that can do it all for you.
Yeah, a good number 2.
And I just think linebacker depth is a very underrated position they still need to fix here. And because of all positions they were able to select because they traded back, they can take a position like linebacker early day 3.
Yeah, for depth reasons, for developmental reasons. A guy like Cedric Gray has the upside, has the talent, just got to work on the few fundamentals like the missed tackling. He can do that in special teams. Aaron Curry can work with him. He's already talked to him.
Yep.
Seen him at his pro day and everything. So, guy to fall back on for linebacker depth, Cedric Gray in the 4th round. Wouldn't be a bad selection whatsoever.
Yeah, he's just someone that has a lot of starting experience in college and someone that could be a very good development for our linebacking group. Someone that could be very good linebacker depth and eventually become a potential future starter because we don't know how much longer Holcomb's going to be here or even Atlanta Roberts. So, got to think about the future a little bit. Got to think about improving defensive depth, which is very needed.
Yeah, and again, the competition factor of that too.
Absolutely. So, Cedric Gray in the 4th round, we kind of like that option there. We really like that option in the 4th round just to solidify linebacker depth, bring an extra body into that linebacking core, make the linebacker room just a lot more stacked, a lot more ferocious.
A lot more speedy at that too.
Especially since Omar Khan, the last 2 years, has revamped the linebacker room. He revamped it immensely last year. And I think he still added upon it this year with Patrick Queen, and I think he could use some extra depth.
Yeah, I don't think he's not a linebacker. I really don't.
No,
I really don't. That's a position to keep an eye on for the draft later in the rounds.
Yeah, I agree.
Keep an eye on that.
Now, with the 178th pick in this mock, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Travis Glover, offensive tackle out of Georgia State. This is someone that the Steelers have kept their eye on very quietly. Now, this is someone that you may not recognize. This is someone you may not know unless you really dig deep, unless you really searched up. He was someone that was not at the combine, but he is someone the Steelers have had their eye on. He's one of the under-the-radar guys. He's one of the more late-rounder prospects. He's a 5-year starter for Georgia State, starting games at left tackle, right tackle, and even left guard. So he's one of those versatile linemen that the Steelers like, almost like another Spencer Anderson. Just a lot more stocky, a phenomenal build, NFL body. His consistencies are a little concerning. The fact that he didn't really go up against NFL caliber or top conference talent is a little concerning. I will add upon that. And that's because he was from a small school. He comes from a small school. But what he did at Georgia State was still enough to get him eyeballs from a lot of NFL teams, including the Patriots and, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers might throw a late-round flyer in there just to secure some extra tackle depth. And they double dip in this mock with tackle because they get their future right tackle. And think about this. We still don't have great depth at tackle. We have Dan Moore, then Blake Fisher in this mock, Dylan Cook. Is there anyone else we have?
That's about it.
Or think about this. Dan Moore is coming into the last year of his contract. Are the Steelers going to resign him? Maybe. They favor him a lot more than us fans do, but they might resign him. He has that starting experience. He could be a very decent depth guy. But if there's any other team that might throw some extra cash at him, that might throw him a starting spot flyer anywhere, he might take it. And then we're out of a swing tackle guy. We're out of swing depth. That's what this guy could do. He can get his feet wet, mostly red shirt, be a guy on the bench, continue to develop and work on his fundamentals, on his craft, and then he would be the swing tackle guy post the Dan Moore era.
Yeah.
So you got to think about that as well. And then that's potentially what Steelers could be looking at Travis Glover for, just thinking of the future and thinking of the future depth.
No, it's smart. It's intelligent.
Yeah, and this guy's ferociousness, his build is scary. So you bring in that versatility, you bring in him to develop a little bit, then yeah, he could be very quality depth down the road. And the last pick in this mock with the 195th pick, we double dipped at tackle. Now it's time to double dip a wide receiver. With the 195th pick in this mock, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Jordan Whittington, wide receiver out of Texas. So we start with a Longhorn, and we end with a Longhorn. And a guy like Jordan Whittington, who the Steelers have also shown interest in. Again, going back to how Zach Asani went to the Texas Pro Day, Texas has 3 wide receivers coming out of school, man. They have A.D. Mitchell, they have Xavier Worthy, and they have Jordan Whittington, who obviously didn't see as much production because not only does Texas have 3 wide receivers coming into this draft class, they also have their starting tight end as well. So Whittington didn't see a lot of production. He didn't see a lot of playing time. He didn't see a lot of targets. But what he did see was a lot of special teams time, and he showcased a lot of his run blocking ability, which we could use in the wide receiver room. We just need extra bodies. We need that special teams value because we lost Miles Boykin. We do not have that special teams gunner in the wide receiver room.
No, we don't.
And that's not Quez Watkins. That could be Van Jefferson, maybe. That's not Calvin Austin. We don't have a special teams gunner. That's what a guy like Jordan Winston would do because he already has the build. He has the strength. He has that running back background, and he has that blocking ability that we could use on the offense. We could use him in some trick plays if we ever desire to, if he ever sees some playing time. But he would come in as pretty much bottom depth at the wide receiver room, see some special teams initially, and then I think he could work his way up in the depth chart down the road because I think his receiving ability is a little underrated. There's a lot to be desired there because he didn't get to use a lot of it. He was used more so as a blocker, and of course that fits the Arthur Smith system perfectly as you see here. So I think they're gonna look at him in that role initially, but he could continue to still work his way up as a receiver because again that running back background, he's only played the position for like 3 years now. So he can continue to develop and then work his way up, climbing the depth chart.
Yeah, he's still learning the position. He can still develop, get him in there as special teams, work there, get his feet wet. Just add another body to the wide receiver room, just add more depth to it because the depth that we have now, I don't really see it lasting long or being here for the long haul.
No, it's not. So we're going to need some future depth. So that's what this mock was pretty much showcasing. Not only did we double dip a receiver, where we also double dip at Texas, which the Steelers have been doing for years now. That's been one of the secret things about their draft classes is they double dip in the same school a lot now. I think they've done it every year since 2017 or something like that.
I believe so.
2017, 2018, one of those years. They've done it pretty much every year since then, so they like double dipping in the same schools. So we double dip at Texas with their 2 wide receivers. We double dip at tackle. We get a linebacker depth, and we get a defensive line depth who could eventually become the ideal starter opposite of Keanu Benton and a guy like Mason Smith.
Yeah.
So because we trade back, we're able to fulfill a lot of these early positions like receiver, like center, like tackle, like slot corner. But we fulfill also a lot of depth, which we really need, man, because most of our depth won't be here too long. Most of our depth, honestly, isn't that trustworthy, isn't that dependable. So we bring in extra bodies to just strengthen that.
Yeah.
Because we really need to work on the depth chart. We need to work on the dependability there. And because we trade back and select all the other needs early, we're able to add on so many other positions, so much extra bodies in rooms where we just need better depth.
Yeah, because I think it's important that we load those positions up. We fill that room with competition. Just those bodies in there, just get them in there, get them working, just see who comes out the best.
And ideally, you have your depth for the future.
Yeah.
You got your receiver depth, you got your linebacker depth. Right now, you would have your defensive line depth. So it all works out. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. How you guys feel about this mock? How you guys feel about the trading back scenario? Or do you think they could trade up? Give us your guys' opinions in your mocks down in the comments below. And we will have one more mock this draft season, which will be next week, right before the NFL draft. And we will be live for that mock draft. So it should be interesting. But let us know your guys' thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching. And see you in the next one. Here we go, Steelers.
And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Peace!